Outside, most welcome to Hampi. I see media, national media and local media. We have with us our Sherpa Shri Amitabh Kantji, and we've just finished first session of the third Sherpa meeting in this beautiful city, in this beautiful location. And after the first session, we are here to interact with you. So without further ado, I'll request Sherpa sir to address the media friends, and then we'll take questions moderated by Srijan. Thank you, sir.
So let me first extend a very warm welcome to all our media friends from various parts of India who have joined us today for the third Sherpa meeting, which has started at Hampi today. The first Sherpa meeting was held in Udaipur. The second Sherpa meeting was held in Kumaragam. The third Sherpa meeting is being held at Hampi. And the fourth final meeting will be held in Delhi before the Leaders' Summit to finalize the Leaders' Declaration. So, as you are all aware, many of you are from Hampi, but for those of you who are not from Karnataka, who have come from Delhi, we've tried to do it at a leading heritage site, which is one of India's greatest heritage sites on the banks of Tungabhadra, and which is the last capital of the kingdom of Vijayanagar. And to our mind, this is it has some very intricate and captivating Dravidian style monuments. It is a very unique archaeological World Heritage Site. So this meeting will be held over 3 days. We will see over about 125 delegates from G20 members, from invitee countries and from international organizations. And their objective will be to co-draft the G20 Leaders' Declaration in September. This is a co-drafting exercise because we have to bring everybody together, and we have to get a consensus on this. Many of you may be aware that the Prime Minister said that India's G20 presidency has to be very inclusive, very decisive, very ambitious, and very action-oriented. And in keeping with that spirit, we have kept if you look at our draft which we have circulated, is based on several themes. One is which is accelerated, inclusive, sustainable and resilient growth, because the world is getting into recession. 1/3 of the world is in recession. We have to drive inclusive, resilient and sustainable growth, which is an accelerated, because that is the key, so that will lift people above poverty line. Now, when we talk about inclusive, resilient, sustainable growth, we are looking at global growth and macroeconomic policy. We are looking at the role of private sector here. We are looking at issues of unlocking trade for growth. We are looking at global value chains. We are looking at building cities for tomorrow. And we are looking at preparing for the future of work. And we are looking at issues of fostering global economic cooperation. Also, where we are looking at high-level principles on law enforcement relating to international cooperation and information sharing for combating corruption, etc., and foreign bribery. From finance track, which is going on, there will be also issues of crypto assets framework and finance track on tax rules, etc., which they are discussing. All those will come up. And the second priority is accelerating progress on sustainable development goals. As you are aware, the sustainable development goals were driven by the United Nations. They were supposed to be delivered by 2030, but because of the COVID and because of cost of living crisis, instead of progressing, we have regressed, and only 12% of the targets are on track. Rest of them are not on track. So During the decade of action, we want to leverage the G20 convening power and its collective resolve to champion the Agenda 2030, to accelerate progress on SDG, and a new action plan for 7 years has been worked out by a development working group. And therefore, we will be asking all countries to do effective implementation of G20 2023 action plan to accelerate progress on SDG. We will also recognize the role of digital transformation for data for development. We are focusing on supporting the United Nations Summit on SDG later in the year, and we will also push for several other things, including eliminating, there is a whole focus on eliminating hunger and malnutrition, on universal health coverage, on finance and health for pandemic, which we are focusing on, and on delivering quality education. All these are key issues. And then there is a focus on Green Development Pact for a sustainable future. And there we are discussing issues of lifestyle for sustainable development, which Prime Minister has talked about, life, which has been the key area of focus, and also developing sustainable, inclusive and just transitions globally. We have focused on delivering on climate finance. We have focused on conserving, protecting and restoring ecosystems. We have focused on harnessing and preserving the blue economy, blue ocean economy. We have focused on ending plastic pollution. We have focused on reducing disaster risk and building resilient infrastructure. All this as a part of Green Development Pact. Then we are also focusing on multilateral institutions for the 21st century, and this is absolutely necessary for money to flow into the emerging markets. And there we are focusing on several issues like reforming international financial institutions. As many of you are aware, there's a report which has been commissioned by Larry, under the chairmanship of Larry Summers and N.K. Singh, for which the first half of the report has been submitted, the first chapter, and we will be discussing that after the Finance Ministry has discussed it. We will be taking it forward to implement. Also IMF reforms, and also expert group report on reforming the multilateral development banks to meet shared global responsibilities. We will be also discussing the G20 independent review of MDB's capital adequacy framework, and we will be discussing issues relating to resolving global debt vulnerability, which will come for the finance track. All these are under the multilateral institutions for 21st century. Then our next priority of India, as has been spelled out by the Prime Minister, is technological transformation and digital public infrastructure. We've talked about this decade being a decade and how it can be, technology can be used to transform the lives of citizens. So we will discuss several things here. One is digital public infrastructure, how it can be taken to other parts of the world, and how the lives of citizens can be transformed through the use of digital public infrastructure. We will also be discussing artificial intelligence and how we can use it for the benefit of citizens. And we will also like to discuss how we can do innovation in a developmental manner. And we will also discuss the securing the digital economy, how do we foster digital ecosystems. And then we are focusing very strongly on gender equality and empowering all women and girls, where our focus will be on enhancing economic and social empowerment. We will be focusing on bridging the gender digital divide. We'll be focusing on driving gender inclusive climate action. We'll be discussing securing women's food security, nutrition and well-being. And lastly, we will be discussing safeguarding international peace and security with counter-terrorism and counter-narcotics. And lastly, creating a more inclusive world with where Prime Minister has already proposed the inclusion of Africa and African Union as a member of G20. So that will be discussed, and we'll try and bring a consensus around this so that we can support African Union to realize the aspiration under Agenda 2063. So ladies and gentlemen, our focus will be on delivering sustainable growth, investment, decent jobs, meeting our collective ambitions, and actually ensuring that, as the Prime Minister has said, that our presidency must be inclusive, decisive, ambitious, and action-oriented. All this we will drive, and our objective throughout will be that India's Leaders' Declaration is leaders-like and very action-oriented. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the media who have joined us. We are very grateful to all of you to be here and to cover the G20 summit. The Sherpa meeting, as you are aware, is very important. Sherpas are envoys to the leaders, and therefore they work on behalf of the leaders. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank the government of Karnataka for all their assistance and support. We'd like to thank the local administration, the hospitality industry. We'd like to thank the Archaeological Survey of India and the National Highway Authority of India, which has very quickly developed this entire road because of G20. We've been able to clean up ASI, we've been able to do the roads, we've been able to do a lot of development in Hampi, and we hope that we are able to develop Hampi as one of the greatest destinations of the world thanks to G20. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Srijun. Couple of questions.
Thank you to Sherpa sir for taking time out from intense negotiations and to brief the media. Because there's a paucity of time, and I believe that sir has to rush back to another meeting. Let's take a few questions, very short ones.
So I would also like to say, I'll take a few questions, but I'd also like to say that while we are here, we've also tried to provide a very unique, to all the delegates, a very unique experience around the cultural experiences have been very meticulously crafted by us, curated by us, focusing on the rich heritage and culture so that the delegates can visit the Vijaya Vittala temple, the royal enclosure, the Yaduru Basavanna complex of the Hampi group of monuments, get blessings at the temple, and also see the Hampi museum. They will also be able to do yoga session at one of the heritage sites. They will be able to do a coracle boat ride on the Tungbhadra, and they will get an exposure to local handicrafts. And our entire objective of all this will be to showcase Karnataka as a very unique element of one earth, one family, one future.
Yeah, could you please raise hands if you want to ask the question? Someone will go around. Please. And I would request you to introduce your organization.
The ladies first.
First of all, thank you so much, sir. I just wanted to know what were the issues that everybody has converged on, and what were the issues that differences of opinion have risen?
So on developmental issues, I think broadly there's an agreement that what India has proposed. There are some minor suggestions suggestions keep coming on the leaders' draft. Everybody has said that we should be ambitious. Everybody has said that we should be action-oriented. Everybody wants to take it to the level which our Prime Minister has desired. We don't want too much of text. When 29 Sherpas are negotiating and drafting, a lot of text gets added, so we have to edit it properly. Right now we are taking all suggestions. We have already done one revised draft, we'll do a second revised draft. So we have taken a lot of inputs from everyone. We have not got into the contentious issue at all here. We are looking at ambitious issues of development, growth, finance, all developmental issues of growth, progress, etc. are all being discussed. All the issues that I talked about. There will be a contentious issue, and that will be the issue of geopolitics, which we are not discussing at this stage at all. We are discussing bilaterally, because this is also a meeting for networking and bilaterals, etc. So a lot of bilaterals, we'll discuss that.
The lady here.
One lady, one gent. Batao.
Please.
Then we'll come to you.
Please,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, Asit here from Business Standard. Sir, as you said, you are holding bilateral meetings with other Sherpas also. So what is the feedback you are getting on the contentious issues which you are saying that you are not negotiating together when you are meeting? So so the obvious question is on Russia-Ukraine war. So how you think you will be able to tackle that is obviously the elephant in the room.
No, there's no elephant in the room, let me tell you, because first of all of you must realize that the Russia-Ukraine war is not our creation. It is not a creation of developing countries and emerging countries. It is not a priority for us. Our priority is developmental issues. Our priority is growth. Our priority is inclusive growth, sustainable growth. Our priority is more finance from multilateral institutions. Our priority is sustainable development goals. Our priority is technological transformation. Our priority is gender equality. Our priority is not war. That's not our priority at all. That may be a priority for somebody else. So that is why we'll discuss right in the end. And we are, whether we get a solution or not, that has nothing to reflect. Our objective of all ambitious things we will push. What will help the global south? If we are able to bring African Union, as the Prime Minister said, into the fold of G20, that's a huge achievement. If we are able to push accelerated growth, that's a huge achievement. If we are able to push digital public infrastructure, that's a huge achievement. 133 countries do not have fast payments. If we are able to push lifestyle for sustainability, that's a huge achievement. All those are our priorities. Why should we be bothered about the priorities of others? That's an important issue, but there are many other important issues.
Yeah. Madam, please, go ahead. Maybe the last.
Sir, I'm Aisha from DD News. Just partially answered the question which I was going to ask you. With regard to the digital infrastructure and also the African Union, what exactly do you think are their priorities in terms of getting a benefit from this kind of a grouping from G20? I mean, is it the technology first, or what are the other areas? Because post-pandemic, India has emerged as a leader in technology, building a huge digital infrastructure in the country. So how are these countries looking at India for?
So first of all, EU is already represented. So actually G20 is 19 plus 1, which is EU. Now what we are saying is AU should also come, which will bring in 54 countries. And that will cover roughly close to about 90% of the global population. G20 will then cover about close to 90% of the global population. So whatever decision you take will cover both emerging markets and the developed world. The important thing for all of us to realize that if you look at the growth trajectory of the world, the share of emerging markets is increasing. The share of developing market is coming down. But for emerging markets to grow faster, which they will because of, as the IMF has said, most of the growth will come from emerging markets because of demographics. There's a young population in India, young population in Africa. Most of the growth will come from these emerging markets. But for emerging markets to happen, they need greater financial flows. And the international financial architecture today, if there's inflation in one part of the world, interest rates rise, resources flow from developing world to the developed world and not the other way around. So the international financial architecture and the ability to provide long-term lending for climate action and for sustainable development goals has to be provided by multilateral institutions. Those institutions were made in the post-World War II era. They were not designed for either climate, they were not designed for SDGs. So that is what this new committee report has recommended. We will look at its recommendation and leaders will, all that I have said is for the leaders to finally decide. The Sherpas recommend to the leaders. The final decision has to be taken by the leaders. So we are a drafting body for the leaders. We are drafting only for the leaders. That is the thinking. And therefore the voice of the South is very important for us.
Deepshika.
Sir,
Any other questions?
So last.
Yeah, Deepshika.
sir, on digital transformation, what exactly is the draft proposing in terms of what the protocols would be and who would finance it? What would be the financing for this?
So first and foremost, the concept of digital public infrastructure, there's a global vacuum on the definition of digital public. Actually, digital public infrastructure first came up from as the internet is a digital public infrastructure. The digital identity is, the GPS is another digital public infrastructure. The digital identity is the third. Linking it up with the bank accounts is the fourth. DigiLocker may be the fifth. Fast payments may be the sixth. Education, health, all this may be the digital public infrastructure is basically about layers of public infrastructure on which private sector innovates, which are open source, open API, they are interoperable. That is, but the basic definition of DPI, there's no governance framework on DPI. So there has to be a framework of definition of digital public infrastructure, the definition of digital public infrastructure, and ensuring that whatever best practices have been built up are then taken to other parts of the world, so that you are able to ensure that money is put into the bank accounts of the beneficiaries and there are no leakages. That is the key. And that is how we were able to do COVID vaccination. We were able to ensure that 800 million people money. So that's the need of the hour in most. 4 billion people do not have an identity. 3 billion people do not have a bank account in the world. 133 countries do not have a fast payment. So our objective will be that use this for transforming lives of citizens. That is important. And if this is going to be the decade, it will have to be driven by digital public interest. So the financing structure is being discussed in the digital working group. We are meeting, the third Sherpa working group is meeting at a point of time when several ministerial meetings are being held. The finance track meetings are being held. The final meetings are being held, which will all feed. But we've gone ahead and started discussing the leaders' declaration. Yes, please.
Just one question, forgive me, because I came late, there was only one flight I could get. Do you expect consensus on some kind of draft statement to come out this weekend? Or
No.
What did you say that you expected and didn't expect?
No, we have started discussing. It's a very complex, getting 29 countries to agree is very difficult than writing a piece for Financial Times. It's very complex. So we'll have to work very, very hard on this. So today we have discussed the preamble and conclusion paras. Tomorrow we'll discuss one by one. We are doing close to about 17 hours of discussion in Hampi. And then we have several intersessional discussions, and then we have the last Sherpa track. Yeah, we'll give a press release.
Thank you, friends.
But
Thank you
it's not an easy job. It's a tough job. The Sherpa's job is a very tough job. Yeah.
Wish us good luck. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
And
thank you all. Thank you all for coming from different parts.
thank you. So watch out this space tomorrow.
And I hope all of you some of you are from Hampi, but those who are not from Hampi, please join us for the cultural program. Those who have come from outside, we are welcome there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.